Hello, my beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of Life as It Is. I'm your host, Ejiro Agbonifo. Let's dive right in. Today, I want us to talk about something that people don't talk about enough. You know, a lot of people talk about finding purpose. We talk about discovering your calling, and even most times we talk about walking in your purpose. But what happens after finding purpose and you start walking in it and it feels heavy? What happens after that very thing you've been praying for now begins to demand too much from you than you expected? What happens when your calling begins to feel uncomfortable? That is what we're going to be discussing today. Because sometimes purpose is exciting, but purpose can also be exhausting. And let's be honest, many people don't quit because they don't know their purpose. They quit because purpose became heavier than they expected. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever prayed for something? You know, you prayed for something so much, but when it arrived, you began to see that this is too exhausting. Or I would say, it came with a lot of responsibilities that you weren't prepared for. For example, maybe you prayed for marriage, but then marriage came with a lot of sacrifice. Maybe you prayed for children, but then children came with a lot of sleepless nights. Maybe you prayed for promotion, but then promotion came with a lot of stress and pressure. Maybe you prayed for influence, but then influence came with criticism. Sometimes we love the idea of purpose, but what we don't prepare for is the weight that comes with it. I was thinking of a Swedish story while preparing for this episode, and then one name came to mind: Greta Thunberg. Love her or disagree with her, one thing is undeniable. Greta Thunberg started as a young girl. Already in her preteens, she was always sitting outside the Swedish parliament to make her voice heard. One girl, one voice, one mission. Most people probably thought she was wasting her time, that she wasn't going to get far with this climate change issue. She kept pushing on. But before long, the entire world was listening to her. She was speaking in global conferences, meeting world's great leaders, being interviewed by international medias, and traveling across countries. Imagine that for a moment. A teenager. Sounds inspiring, right? But here's the part many people forget. Purpose gave her visibility, but it also came with a lot of criticism. Purpose gave her influence, but it came with pressure. Purpose gave her a platform, but it came with a lot of burden on her little shoulder. That is the kind of reality that many people skip to talk about. Because of a truth, purpose arrives with a lot of weight. And I think that's where a lot of us get surprised, because most of us think that purpose comes light. You know, once you discover your purpose, then everything just begins to flow smoothly. But what nobody tells you is that there's a lot of weight, responsibility, and after effects that comes with walking in your purpose. We think purpose should always feel motivating, but the truth is sometimes purpose feels like a huge responsibility. It feels like a sacrifice that you have to make. Or maybe let me use the word, it actually most times begins with no one clapping for you. Everybody looking at you like you're foolish, like you don't know where you're going or what you're doing. I remember periods in my own life, especially the time where I had to go back studying while being a mother. Then I had 5 children and I had to study full time, because as at that time, my purpose was, getting to my peak in my career as a geologist, of course. So I went back to school to study. At that time, I thought purpose would feel inspiring every day. Yes, this is it. So you're motivated every day. Instead, many days felt really heavy. They felt like times where I was pushed to the wall and I wanted to give up. There were assignments to submit, children to care for, bills to pay, expectations to meet. And some moments I wondered if I was strong enough, if I could even continue with this. But that was me living in my purpose. And then there was another chapter. A chapter of losing certainty. A chapter after leaving my employment, and then everything suddenly looked different. The chapter where I began asking bigger questions. What am I becoming? What am I really doing? What is it that I'm meant to do next? Why do I feel this pull towards speaking, towards helping people, towards life lessons? towards building a community. I had to turn on the light because the weather is beginning to get dark and cloudy outside. Look, it's beginning to rain. Yeah. So I think the video might look different now because previously the light wasn't on. But yes, I digress. So, can I be honest? Starting this podcast has not always felt easy. You see the final videos, but what you don't see is the doubts. You don't see the countless recordings I have to delete over and over again. You don't also see the times where I'm wondering, will anyone actually listen to this? Those times where I question myself and no one sees those nights, those days when I'm so tired, yet I have to get up and show up. Purpose always looks glamorous from a distance. One lesson that I've learned from this is that if your purpose never stretches you, it is probably not your purpose. Because purpose is designed to grow you. Purpose introduces you to a version of yourself that you've never met. Purpose demands courage. Purpose demands faith. Purpose, it demands growth. Think about a gym. Nobody becomes stronger lifting feathers. Strengths come from resistance. The challenges are not always showing that you're on the wrong path. They are signs that you are growing. And maybe that's what somebody listening needs to hear today. The heaviness you're experiencing is not a sign that you should quit. It may mean that it's a sign that you are carrying something meaningful. Know this, a mother carries responsibility. A leader carries responsibility. A teacher carries responsibility. A business person carries responsibility. A person with purpose carries responsibility. That is just the truth. Now, let me give you 3 signs that your purpose might feel heavy. Number 1, you care deeply. When you genuinely care, the weight feels real. Number 2, you are growing, and growth feels uncomfortable. Because the truth is, every new level requires a new version of you. And number 3, you are making an impact. The greater the impact, the greater the responsibility. Never forget that. So how do we continue when purpose feels heavy? That is the golden question for today. First, stop expecting purpose to feel easy. Once you learn how to control your expectations, it feels easier because anything that happens after, you're able to take it. Expecting too much makes it hit hard when those responsibilities come weighing down on your shoulder. Secondly, stop comparing your journey with another person's. I believe I don't need to expand more on that. Focus on yourself. Third, take one day at a time. The 4th one, always remember why you started. And finally, but I think the most important, lean on God. Believe in God. Hand it all over to Him and let Him lead you. I bet you, it takes off the stress. You can't truly do it on your own. Allow God lead. Because some assignments are too heavy to carry alone. You need God. As I bring this episode to an end, I want to leave you with one thing. Maybe the reason why purpose feels heavy is because it matters. Maybe the reason why you feel stretched is because you are growing. Maybe the reason why the journey feels difficult is because you're carrying something so valuable. Don't run from the weight. Grow into the person that can carry it. Because the world needs what you're carrying. And someone, somewhere, is waiting for that thing that you almost gave up on. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Life as It Is. If this conversation spoke to you, don't hesitate to share with someone who might also need it. And I would love to hear from you. What is one area of your life where purpose feels heavy right now? Never forget this. You are not behind. You are becoming. Until next time, take care and keep rising. God bless you.